Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty, and joining me is Don Baker.
Hey, good to be here.
And that was Seal. This is a live call-in public access television show, broadcast every Sunday from 4:30 to 6 p.m., but it's also available by MP3 download and podcast now. So welcome to the podcast listeners and those of you who are downloading previous episodes. You can get information about this by visiting atheist-experience.com or the ACA website, atheist-community.org, and clicking on the link to the Atheist Experience TV show. It's an opportunity, the program is an opportunity for atheists to interface with the community and the community to interface with atheists. We welcome you all to the show. We'll have the telephone number up for you shortly so that you can call in and talk to us. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road every Sunday at 11:30. Except for the third Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center located at 9th and Guadalupe. The next lecture will be March 19th. We're still working on the speakers, so I don't have the actual details for you now, but it'll be a good lecture either way. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors an internet audio program called The Nonprofits. That's hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Dennis Lubay, and also features Russell Glasser and myself. You can listen every other Saturday. We did a program yesterday. I believe the next one is March 11th at freethoughtradio.com, and for more information, you could also go to the ACA site or nonprofitsradio.com. In addition to the programs, we also host a number of social events. You're free to visit the ACA website for more information on all of those. On Thursdays, for example, we have the Atheist Happy Hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex, located on the southbound feeder road of I-35, just south of 183. That begins at 7:30. It's a chance to come down and have some dinner, drinks, meet ACA members and guests, socialize. In addition to that, we also go to dinner after this program, and we're currently going to Threadgill's on Riverside. The program ends at 6 p.m., and we normally arrive at Threadgill somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45. Both of those events, as with all of our events, are open to any atheist or atheist-friendly people. If you're planning on coming down to preach or proselytize or provoke us, just hang on and we'll give you the number in a little bit, and you can call in and do that here on the air. And without any, if you don't get through via telephone, you can also email tv@atheist-community.org. And if you're listening to a rebroadcast of the show or a podcast and you want to communicate with us, correct an error, talk to us, start a dialogue, whatever, that email is available all the time, and it goes to the entire cast and crew of the program. So we like to hear from you if we're doing well or if we're not doing well, or if you have other things, perhaps topics that you think should be addressed on the show, feel free to let us know. And we'll go on over to Don.
Yeah, I guess hello. I guess I should add to that we're starting to get quite a number of folks writing us now, and sometimes we won't write back, but we are reading it. We'll try to address questions and things, but we get a lot of suggestions for, hey, this is a good show topic or whatever, and we are listening. And in fact, today's show topic is based a lot on some of the questions we've had. We've had questions like, well, why are you always beating up on Christianity? Can't you say something positive? Can't you say something, more positive atheism? And Jeff D. certainly did that on the last show with the...
Sure.
Or was it the last show? With the?
No, the last show was Tracy and Annie.
Oh, right. With the Darwin Day. That's definitely a positive atheism topic. Another question we get a lot is, what do you all believe in? And, sometimes we answer that with a sort of limited view of what belief is, right? We're generally skeptical people. We don't believe in a whole lot of things. But there's really sort of a different question there as well. It's more of a, where do you get your creed? Where do you get your values and that sort of thing? And that's what I want to talk about today more is the broader context of atheism, right? Atheism really is the lack of a belief in gods, a god or gods, and that's a very narrow thing. It doesn't imply a whole lot about what we do believe in, what we do follow, and that sort of thing. And atheism is really sort of a way of viewing the world, or a name for a set of tenets or whatever. And there's a lot of other related ones nearby. There's a freethinker, there's skeptic, there's rationalist, there's materialist, there's bright. There's about 5 or 6 others that I've forgotten and haven't mentioned, right? They're all interrelated, and I kind of want to talk about those and then focus on humanism, which is really kind of the most far-reaching, I think, of all of those, in the sense that it does encompass a worldview. It does go beyond just the sort of how do you answer a question issues. But so I've defined atheism, the lack of a belief. Now, a lot of people think that means that we actively assert there is no gods, and if you make a lot of claims about what your God can do and what your God's about, we can say that such a thing doesn't exist because it doesn't make any sense. And we can get into the problem of evil if you want to assert that your God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnibenevolent, right? So, but if you don't make claims like that, if you make the sort of deist claims that there's something that created the universe or something, then it's much harder to argue against that. We can't say that that's false because we don't know.
Essentially, it's kind of a mild confusion. People try to adopt a label to define, one word that defines a broad philosophy. I'm a Christian, and that tells people a lot about what your philosophy is. And with regard to atheism, when you say you're an atheist, that's just a single position on a single question. It's not a philosophy. There's not a lot of anything at all really wrapped up in that. And Buddhists can be atheists, or most are.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about philosophy, who you are and what you believe, that's where we get to.
Yeah, but I want to muddy the waters just a little bit. I mean, people who call themselves atheists generally are people who are skeptical about belief in gods, and I don't know very many Buddhists who call themselves atheists. So they tend to call themselves Buddhists first, right? So it becomes a question of what's your main appellation, your main name you use. Well, let's talk about skepticism. You can call yourself a skeptic, and in fact there's a whole bunch of people out there that gather around this whole skeptic name, and there's magazines for this. One called The Skeptic Magazine. This is edited by a guy named Michael Shermer, who is one of the big names in this area. He has a column in Scientific American that's very good, but he edits this whole magazine. There's another skeptical
website is also skeptic.com. It's SKEPDIC. It's short for Skeptic Dictionary.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the point. And then there's another group, another magazine, Skeptical Inquirer, and this is put on by the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of the Claims of the Paranormal, or CSICOP, which is another skeptical organization. There's actually quite a few other organizations, and skepticism describes someone who habitually doubts commonly accepted ideas, and so this is the idea of, there are these wild claims about religion or UFOs or pyramid power or auras, all this stuff, and a skeptic will basically try to go in and look at these claims with a scientific eye and try to see whether there's any truth to these claims or not, or whether there's a more simple explanation. Usually that's what they're looking for. So a lot of skeptics are debunkers in the sense that they go out and they go and investigate these claims. People like James Randi is a very famous skeptic. We were talking about James Randi before. Michael Shermer has gotten mentioned. Penn and Teller, those magicians. Very, very often magicians are skeptics as well. But Harry Houdini is another example, where they become so aware through their magic of how easy it is to fool people, and how easy it is to trick people into believing the wrong thing, that they feel a sense of responsibility to go and educate the correct way of thinking, or the correct way of thinking about claims that may be fantastic claims, like you make a ball disappear, or the aliens came down and probed somebody or whatever, right? So that's skepticism, which is I think a lot of atheists think of themselves as skeptics, in the sense that we hold a skeptical position on a theological issue, right? On the whole God issue. What about another topic? Free thought. Free thought is another spin on this. It's a little bit different nuance. Free thought is kind of an older movement. Free thinkers strive to form their opinions on the basis of facts and reason. And the idealized statement of this attitude is Clifford's Credo, which I hadn't heard of, but I love it. 19th century British mathematician and philosopher William Kingdon Clifford, who wrote his Ethics of Belief, said that, and here's the quote, "It is wrong always, everywhere, and for everyone to believe anything on sufficient evidence. And I just really think that's beautiful. It's wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything on insufficient evidence. So, so that's what. So free thinkers, by and large, are saying, well, there are these sort of common beliefs or ways of thinking, dogmas, whatever, that they're basically saying, well, no, hold on a minute. We got to take a step back and really think about what these claims really mean and whether we really believe them and so that sort of thing. Now, free thinking and Texas have a common history. It's kind of interesting, and this is actually mentioned in the Wikipedia article. There was a group of German immigrants that came in the 19th century that came to Texas and founded the town of Comfort, Texas, which is not too awfully far from here, and some of the other neighboring towns. And there's actually a monument there in Comfort, which is just a little tiny town, wonderful little place, monument to these free thinkers who came and founded this area. And many of the original German settlers of Texas or Central Texas were free thinkers. And I think we had a presentation on them in our Texas Atheist Agnostics conference a couple years back, and one guy was reading some of the different newspapers and things that they publish, and it was like it could have been written today. It was just really wonderful stuff. So that's free thought, is striving to form opinions based on the facts and reason.
Yeah, the freethinker movement, the Germans, not only can we link them to ties in founding areas in Texas, the German free thought movement was critical to the founding of the United States. It was those freethinkers that influenced people like Thomas Paine, who actually coined the United States of America, and Benjamin Franklin and others who were critical in establishing the
government. Well, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's cool. So
every time somebody says, "Well, this is a Christian nation founded on Christian principles," let's look into that a little bit
principles. More. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one, rationalism. I won't spend quite as much time on this. Rationalism is the philosophical doctrine that asserts that truth can be best discovered by reason and factual analysis rather than faith, dogma, and religious teaching. Very similar to free thinking. Rationalism is sort of holding reason very high, and there's magazines for that. There's the American Rationalist. There's a number of other magazines. These are sort of smaller offshoots of this whole big thing. Let's see. Rationalism can be applied more generally to things like rejection of emotion, tradition, or fashionable belief, which is a defining feature of the rationalist perspective. So that's another little spin on it. There's materialism. This is kind of interesting because there's a bunch of confusion about the word materialism. Materialism is basically the idea that the only thing in the entire universe is matter, is the stuff we see. And I think materialists would actually extend that to the matter and energy in the physics sense, and not energy in the crystal energy auras and feng shui sense. Anyway, so the idea is that there's nothing beyond the material world is materialism.
Matter and energy. It's very similar to naturalism.
Yes,
it's almost identical.
Almost identical.
And this isn't to be confused with other forms of the word materialism, where there is
right. There's Madonna's. She's a material girl. There's
right.
Materialism as in the quest for money and things, and this has nothing to do with that. So I think those two ideas get confused.
Right.
Right. So very often believers will beat up on materialism. Because they'll say, well, materialism is sort of the belief. The term is scientific materialism is what they're beating up, and in fact, that's actually mentioned in the wedge strategy of the intelligent design movement. Is scientific? They're beating up on they think that scientific materialism is a bad thing. So,
which it always bothers me, because basically you're talking about scientific materialism or naturalism. You're saying that everything is matter or energy, and there's a natural explanation which we can discover through scientific investigation, the scientific method, etc. And people object to this as, oh, no, because, of course, it disregards any God. But it seems to me perfectly reasonable to disregard anything, God, whatever concepts you want, until there's actually sufficient evidence to show that belief is reliable, that there's any reason to factor that into an equation.
So maybe you're a rationalist or a free thinker.
I am. I'm probably most of these.
These terms. We should emphasize that these terms overlap, and they're kind of nuances of the same idea. And I agree with you. You have to have some evidence to back these things up. So one of our problems in the political arena is that we do take on these different nuances, and then we kind of put our energies in different categories, and we're all kind of like a bunch of cats who don't like to be herded. And we're going up against generally the religious right, who are a bunch of
sheep who like to be herded.
Well, I was going to be a little nicer and say that they're generally very organized around their goals and such, and we're not.
They are very well organized.
Very well organized and
well financed.
Yep. So there's a movement to try to gather our little flock together and under the same name. And that didn't work too well, and this is the movement called the Bright movement. And this is a term that was coined more recently to try to be an umbrella term for all these different free thought, rationalist, atheist, and so on. And the term bright is a noun, right? You are a bright, right? You are a bright. It was coined by Paul Geisert in 2003 as a positive-sounding umbrella term to define the various kinds of people who have naturalistic worldview. Munga Futrell defined the word as follows. A bright is a person whose worldview is naturalistic, free of supernatural and mystical elements. A bright's ethics and actions are based on naturalistic worldview. Okay, so that's fine. The whole idea of the word bright is harking back to the Enlightenment and the humanity's illumination during the Enlightenment, an optimistic era when science and reason seemed to offer a hope for the future. So that's where that's come from. Unfortunately, the cats have not gathered up under this umbrella. A lot of folks think that this is a kind of a snooty term that is casting aspersions on the intelligence of the non-brights or the supernaturalists.
Yeah, I'm a bright and you're not.
So I actually like the term, but I think I'm in the minority in our group. And one of the reasons I like the term is, and this is my personal view of atheists, is that atheists, because they don't think that they have an afterlife, they do tend to live life in the fullest. They tend to have a very bright light in the sense of they are focusing their energy on the here and now, and I really see this sort of thing in the atheists that I know. So I think that the term fits for that reason as well. Okay,
yeah, I'm not one to.
I'll let you
normally apologize on behalf of a title or name. I have no problem at all with the current situation with the comics. I think it's a good idea to lampoon and mock beliefs, and that nothing should be sacred, and that we shouldn't be minimizing free speech on behalf of let's play nice and not offend anybody.
Right. But if it needs protection, then something's wrong with it, right?
Right, yeah. I never jumped onto the bright movement term, and it wasn't necessarily because I worried about so much other people's perception. To me, I think my biggest objection was probably that there are already other terms, and this is a new term for an old idea, and if we're going to try and keep repackaging it, it makes it look like there was something wrong with it in the first place, which is why I'm an atheist. I call myself an atheist. It's a label that I wear proudly. I'm on TV as an atheist every week.
A lot of folks
and let's turn that word around, because it's the one that,
Well, there's a lot of stigma associated with atheism, right?
I got banned from a forum yesterday, actually.
Oh, yeah?
And one of the last things that they wrote was, you're just another one of those atheists trying to edit God's word. Well, yes, I'm part of the evil atheist agenda.
Okay.
But, yeah, I didn't, I can see the complaints about bright as a term, about it implying, it's bad enough, and this has always bothered me too. We're kind of talking a little bit about labels and what you adopt, and how some of them kind of come under attack. Atheist as a label has been vilified. Bright got some bad press as kind of some elitist intellectual snobbery.
Yeah. Well,
but that's a real objection that occurs all the time, where people who actually are intelligent and know things and speak intelligently and can act, back up their arguments, etc. They're kind of vilified as too smart or too snooty, and
right.
We saw it like
there is a little bit of a stigma
in the
for being too
presidential
smart.
elections and debates, where one candidate seems to come off a little too snooty and intellectual, and we'd rather have the dumb president. The president is just like me. But I'm not trying to get.
I guess there's
political
something, some sort of ego trip to be, smarter than the president.
But I remember it even from 25, 30 years ago, or however long I was, back in primary school, junior high and everything. It was the smart kids are nerds. Nobody wants to hang around them. There's a stigma associated with being smart and learning things, and it carries on. And I think it's just an easy way to, point out what you're not, or vilify something because you're afraid of it or threatened by it or whatever. But, so what else we got?
It's easy to tear something down.
Okay.
Well, under this whole bright umbrella is another term which I've sort of pulled out because it's much a bigger sort of thing, and that's humanism. And I want to sort of talk about what humanism means and some of the different nuances of it, because you might have heard about it in various different venues, and some of these little things are kind of a little complicated. And of course, there's various groups promoting humanism as well. Unfortunately, some of them don't get along as well as we'd like. But anyway, humanism is basically a worldview. It's a worldview that says, in a nutshell, that you can live a good life and you can have moral values, and you can better mankind and better the world through reason, and you don't need to rely on gods. They may or may not exist. Humanism is basically the idea that we're going to do our own thing, and we're going to have to solve our own problems regardless of what the gods say. There's a version of humanism called secular humanism that's more of the atheist slant on it, that we don't believe that there are any gods. So there's shades of gray there. So humanism says that knowledge of the world is derived by observation, experimentation, and rational analysis. This is very much in keeping with the other things I've talked about earlier. Humans are an integral part of nature, the result of an unguided evolutionary change. So humanists embrace the theory of evolution. We feel that we are really no different fundamentally than all the other animals. We just happen to have good attributes in intelligence and that sort of thing. We're not so good in running races against cheetahs or staying underwater for months at a time. There's those sorts of other attributes that might be valuable in other circumstances. So humans are just part of nature. We're not divinely created or any magic there. We're just part of the whole thing. The next thing is ethical values are derived from human need and interest as tested by experience. So the idea that we build our own ethics based on our knowledge and what we know about human nature and how we try to make the world better. And the next thing is life's fulfillment emerges from individual participation in the service of humane ideals. So our goal should be to help other humans. Pretty simple idea. Humans are social by nature and find meaning in relationships. That's pretty obvious. Working to benefit society maximizes individual happiness. So there's the idea that societies should be for humanity, right? Their ends should be to help humans achieve their potential. And one of the ways in which humanism has been kind of torn down is by saying, by putting a stake in the ground as to how society should look in order to achieve that end. The humanist movement is at least 70 years old. The modern humanist movement. So, at the time of the original so-called Humanist Manifesto of 1933, there was a big focus on socialism and the notion of harnessing governments to benefit society, and more recently that has looked bad, right? Because we're all about capitalism these days, right? But at the same time, humanists would say, well, we don't care quite so much about the nature of it, but we can measure how good a society is by how well it achieves the happiness of the people within it, right? So capitalism is fine as long as people are able to sort of grow and be happy and achieve their goals and aspirations. So yeah.
I hate to do this. This is a complete aside. You're talking about this, and it prompted something that I heard the other day.
Fine.
This is kind of a off-topic thing, but you were talking about humanism and atheism. I actually had somebody tell me the other day that Christianity is unique because all of the other religions are isms, and Christianity is an itty. And to which I replied,
was there any meat to that comment? Or
that was just it. Christianity is unique. I mean, you've got Judaism, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity.
Boy,
I said, what about Catholicism and Protestantism?
Boy, if you had something like that, you better flaunt it.
That was just fun. But back to what you were saying for real.
Okay, that's funny. Okay, so humanism is a broad category of ethical philosophies that affirm human dignity and the worth of all people based on our ability to determine what's right using the qualities of innate to humanity, particularly rationality. So it's really sort of, we're rational beings, let's apply those rational things to ourselves and make life better. So in reality, humanism is a worldview that does sort of address many of the sorts of issues of religion that religions try to address, of what's our purpose, how should we apply our efforts, what is good about humanity, and can we bring that out and make it better. So a lot of those things are common with religion, but humanism itself is not a religion, right? It really makes no claims about gods. It basically says, regardless of whether God exists, we are going to do our own thing, or we have to solve our own problems.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of, we know that everything, concepts and everything, including religion, evolve over time, and I think what we're seeing a lot of is a way of evolving religion to give it a new explanation, because for centuries there's been this idea that there are certain questions that religion answers and there are certain questions that science or philosophy answer, and never the two shall meet. And what we're finding is that no, that's a completely irrational position, and there is no question that religion addresses that can't be addressed by rational thought, scientific investigation. We may not yet be able to answer the question or properly investigate, is there a God? But with regard to the origins of species, the origin of life, etc., those are real scientific questions that we can investigate as best we can with the tools and resources and knowledge that we have at any time. So I think we're seeing an evolution of the concept, where one time you had religion was philosophy with a God, and now we're starting to see those walls break down, particularly because of religions like Buddhism, which doesn't have a God, and it's more of a philosophy. So the philosophy with a God doesn't apply to Buddhism as a religion.
Right.
And while the Supreme Court did include secular humanism in a list of religions in a decision, it was in a footnote. It wasn't any kind of official declaration that it's a religion. But I guess it kind of comes down to what you personally want to decide and view. And the only thing that matters from, for example, the United States societal or legal point of view is your belief, your general belief, protected, regardless of whether you believe in a God or have no belief in a God. Those are all protected by the First Amendment. And the sooner we get people to wrap their head around that, then maybe we can start wrapping their head around this separation of church and state idea that people seem to want to deny. But
well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to talk a little bit more. Let's we had the number up a minute ago. Let's invite callers to call in and talk about the topics today, the different names, especially humanism. We're going to talk about secular humanism in a little bit, which seems to be a hot topic among some folks, some religionists.
Falwell and Robertson.
Yeah,
mostly Falwell.
Here. Yeah,
Falwell considers secular
LaHaye
humanists.
actually wrote a couple books on.
LaHaye's pretty bad at that too.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's our number. We're live call-in show today. This is Sunday, the 2nd or 26th of February. We're live. Call in and chat with us. Let us know what you think. If you have any calls about or any questions about atheism or any related topics, we welcome that. So humanism goes back all the way to the Greek mythology. In fact, we sort of skip over Christianity and all that and go back to the ancient Greeks, where the gods in ancient Greece were sort of treated as kind of a soap opera. They were characters that had their own lives and their own concerns, their own foibles and problems and concerns and little things they did. Zeus was kind of a little randy character. He went and impregnated all sorts of different things here and there. Anyway, so humanism goes back to that, where basically the thinking in ancient Greece was, these gods are there, but that's all well and good. This whole idea of worshiping them and harnessing them for our needs, or bowing down to them didn't make a whole lot of sense in that. So humanist ideas came from that time. One of the characters from the pantheon that's most associated with humanism is Prometheus, because he was idolized by ancient Greece as one who defied Zeus. So he stole the fire from the gods and brought it down to the earth, and for this he was punished, and yet he continued his defiance amid his tortures. And at the root of this is the humanist challenge to authority.
Yeah, they celebrate him kind of as a hero, because in ancient Greek mythology, the gods could be wrong.
That's right.
The gods could be, they were just essentially like humans with all kinds of power. And they, as you talked about, they run around impregnating women. They had little petty jealousies and fights between them, and they could be wrong. And it was the Greeks who would determine whether or not they felt that the gods were wrong in their actions or the actions that were attributed to him. And so Prometheus is viewed as a hero.
That's right. Right. So for all his power, Zeus could still be mistaken. And
duped.
And duped. That's right. They were all fooling each other and had disguises.
That
and
had
all
to be kind of empowering to think that, yes, okay, you guys are the gods, but if I'm crafty, I can trick you, which means that I'm better than the god in some aspect. So that would seem to me to be like some kind of something to aspire to.
Right.
To try and trump God.
So there's an interesting little quote here from a humanist that basically says, talking about God's moral standards, to basically the idea that God's entitled to his own opinions.
I love that quote.
So we're going to be tolerant of his opinions, but he could be wrong.
And if he ever comes and wants to discuss them, I'll listen.
Right.
But he doesn't.
You can chat with us.
He doesn't seem to want to defend his opinions at all.
Okay. So much of human progress has been in defiance of religion and the apparent natural order. So humanism, I think, can claim much of the Enlightenment attitudes that really pulled us out of the Dark Ages, that were so heavily ruled by religious belief and dogma. Okay. Let's see. Of all the individuals from ancient Greece, or all the sages, we might adopt, as humanists, we might adopt Socrates as our sage. Every one of the religious sages, Moses, Zarathustra, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, so on, Joseph Smith from Mormonism, all of them claimed to have the absolute truth. But Socrates claimed that he knew nothing. Okay, Socrates claimed that he had a method for questioning the rules of others for cross-examinations and to arrive at the truth. So for these reasons, Socrates is the quintessential skeptical humanist. So that's pretty cool. And then I have a wonderful quote, and then maybe we can start taking some calls.
Sure.
This is from Robert Ingersoll, who is a very famous public speaker.
He's known as, or typically referred to as, the great agnostic. He's one of, probably, along with James Randi and Dawkins and Voltaire and a handful of others, it's way up there on my personal heroes list. If you go to infidels.org, to their library, they have, and I'm sure there are other places that has this as well, the entire collection of Ingersoll's writings and speeches. And he didn't always speak about religious things. There's a famous, really impassioned speech he delivered called 8 Hours Must Come, and he was part of a movement pushing for a 40-hour work week, 8 hours a day, because at the time people were working a lot longer, unable to spend time with their family, etc. So yeah, and Ingersoll was beloved pretty much universally. I mean, there were obviously some fundamentalists who objected to things he said, but he was friends with the clergy. He spoke at Republican national conventions and things like that. He was just really well-spoken and well-liked. Good stuff. What was the quote you got?
Well, the quote is basically about the optimistic attitude that humanists have.
That's
right?
the quote I was telling you about in email.
Oh,
exactly.
Okay, good. Okay, so from Robert Ingersoll, quote, "When I became convinced that the universe is natural, all the ghosts and gods, that all the ghosts and gods are myth, there entered into my brain, into my soul, into every drop of my blood, the sense, the feeling, the joy of freedom. The walls of my prison crumbled and fell. The dungeon was flooded with light, and all the bolts and bars and manacles became dust. I was no longer a servant, a serf, or a slave. There was for me no master in all the wide world, not even in infinite space. I was free. Free to think, to express my thoughts, free to live my own ideal, free to live for myself and those who I loved, free to use all of my faculties and all of my senses, free to spread my imagination's wings, free to investigate, to guess and dream and hope, free to judge and determine for myself. I was free. I stood erect and fearlessly joyously faced all worlds." So,
I've read that one many times. One of my all-time favorites. I think the thing that bothers me, I can find no fault in what he's saying. It's beautiful. As soon as it's a great way of expressing that as soon as you get rid of these superstitious things, you're free. And what bothers me the most is that anytime anybody says anything like that, and with that particular quote as well, some fundamentalists want to comment and say, you see, that's your real goal. You've tossed God aside so that you can be free and do whatever you want. As if freeing your mind, all of a sudden, it necessarily follows that you're going to go out and do all kinds of debauchery and vile stuff. It's just absurd.
People cling to supernaturalism because it's kind of comfortable, right? It's like a security blanket of some sort.
Well, and as you pointed out, last month, they don't have to be responsiple for their actions.
Oh,
they just
did I say that?
Forgive me.
I should have said that.
The whole idea of forgiveness. I don't have to make reparation to another human being. Just forgive me. I screwed up, man. Sorry. Forgive me. Didn't mean to kill you.
Okay. Well, how about we take a call and see where that goes?
Let's do that. How are we doing? You got Steve.
Hi. Yeah. Your comments about skepticism when you mentioned Penn and Teller because they were so good at tricking people that they realized how easy that is to do. And I think skepticism is when applied to interacting with other people, which might be, you might call it being distrustful, although I feel like I'm normally pretty trusting of other people. But it's particularly in terms of why do people do what they do? What are their motivations? And I think, even though I don't think people are liars, I think if you ask somebody, why are you doing what you're doing, even the most honest person, you can be skeptical about their answer, because I think people's motivations are so much more complicated than even they know.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the motivations for doing things and explanations for things that people do actually are found in trying to analyze, what's really behind why this person wants to do this or that.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I agree. Because the psychological motivations behind these things are very important to look at. Yeah.
And it's not a question of direct dishonesty, really. It's really hard to know that, and it's hard to know that about yourself even, and to not just accept certain things, but look at that, I think, is a great approach to trying to figure out what's going on as far as what people are doing in the world. So I think that comes under the category of skepticism, but in a particular aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think that part and parcel of this whole thing is really sort of understanding what human nature is, and what our ultimate goals are, and what our ultimate fears are, and what our ultimate failings are. Right? We are not rational all the time, right? And we are prone to mistakes. We are prone to self-deception. We're prone to wishful thinking, and being aware of those foibles and those problems helps us overcome them, I think.
It helps me explain why do people want to be members of a religious group or a street gang. I can at least understand I can think about it and kind of go, well, you want to belong. There's all kinds of forces that people use to intimidate you to feel shunned or, accepted. There's, just the comfort in, there's a lot of ways to kind of explain things, and those are very powerful reasons, a lot more powerful than any truth and any doctrine.
Right. I think a lot of folks
the organization that they're applying to.
Right. And right. I think a lot of folks don't even think so deeply about the truth of things, or think a lot about what claims are being made and that sort of thing. I think you're right. I think a lot of folks are there to seek out comfort, seek out a sense of belonging. That sort of thing, and I think ultimately religions are ultimately a reflection of human nature, right? They are there to address our insecurities and the issues that we have, right? So we have the community thing that you've alluded to, but it also kind of gets into the whole idea of addressing fears of things. We're afraid of dying. We don't know what's going to happen after death. We have no reason to believe anything at all happens after death, but there's this sort of great unknown, or this great anxiety about what happens, and I think religions tend to address that. What else? There's a whole power issue, right? Is if you feel disempowered, you can join a group and become more powerful, or have this relationship with God and address that weakness, and I think a lot of religions play on that whole thing. They sort of make you feel powerless at the same time taking your power to the greater good, and
there's also things like flattery or involved with, they're kind of like con artist games where something where it's like you are somehow a key thing and you're an important part of something. That is very nice feeling to feel like you're
part of the story, right? You're part of the Jesus story, and that's very flattering. Yes,
and it is used by some evil people, to try and fool you into eventually releasing your money. But I'm not saying that that's specifically the approach that people in religions are taking, but
some of them are
that way for con artists, and the same process seems like it's sometimes part of the what's going on. Anyway, I just thought that was an area of this that was interesting to throw in.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Did you have something, Matt, before
Well, I just, I agree with what you're saying. Although I'd also like to point out that we don't want to paint the brush too broadly, because there is, we're social creatures, and joining groups and working in packs and communities. I mean, we're supported by the Atheist community of Austin. We have a group where people can come to meet with people. And there's a lot of people who, some people are fine independently, and other people need the support of a group. It's really the misuse of the need for social interaction that I think is worth objecting.
Is it being harnessed for some other end?
Yeah, if it's a gang.
Say I think it's bad to be motivated as a human being and do these things. I mean, joining a group, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
I think it's best to be as aware as you can be of why you're joining and what you're getting out of being a member, and then there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's right out there in the open, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your call. And to that caller and to others, we're going out to dinner after the show tonight. We're going to meet at 6:45 at Threadgill's on Barton Springs Road in Riverside.
It's on Riverside.
The address is Riverside, but it's right at Barton Springs Road. It's right at that intersection, just south of the river, south of downtown. 6:45. We invite atheists and atheist-friendly people to come have dinner with us and the crew. We've got quite a few members of our group here in the studio today as well, so we got quite a group. So,
and I'm going to do something a little out of the norm for just a second, because I'm on TV.
You're on TV.
I wouldn't
shave your head or something?
I wouldn't normally do that. Yes, I'm going to shave my head on live TV. No, I wouldn't.
Somebody beat you to it.
Mark was saying I grabbed my beard and pulled it down and cut it off. But
no,
I wouldn't normally do this. Today happens to be my parents' anniversary.
Okay.
They're not watching the show. But on the off chance that they ever go back and watch all the other shows, happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. I love you. I hope you're having a good day.
And you're not, like, out to your folks, are you?
No. And if this happens to be the first show that you watched after finding out, I really love you. But, no, I just hope they're having a good day.
Kind of outing you, I guess.
My brother actually listens to the show, so
okay.
he can maybe I'll use this as a defense someday that I remembered their anniversary because when I called earlier they weren't home. But I don't want to think I forgot.
Oh boy, what a tangled web! All right,
let's go on to Bill. How are we doing?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
Hi.
I was listening to your comment about that Mr. Ingersoll had made regarding the fact that he had felt free when he had his epiphany, and I was remembering my own epiphany and the fact that it seemed like it was the exact opposite. That suddenly all of the responsibilities of mankind fell on...
Oh no!
Call back, Bill. We'll get you
that was an accident, so we're very sorry about that.
I don't even know how that happened because I wasn't actually touching on the button.
Yeah, we've actually had some trouble with our phones today, so that we're sorry if you got cut off. Call us back. We'd like to hear about that epiphany. That sounds very interesting. So
we'll get you through as quick as we can. Let's go.
Sorry about that.
Let's go on to Karen.
Hi, I'm going to talk really fast so you don't cut me off.
I took my hand off the button.
We don't mean to be cutting people off. We're sorry about that.
No, it's okay. This kind of ties in with what you were saying, that you love your parents. I'm interested in, and I'm atheist-friendly, atheist-agnostic, but I do get struggle with the concept of a soul, and also being somewhat materialistic in the sense that you described, Don. I do feel great love and camaraderie and a sense of, being human and going through that experience with other people here. And so I'm wondering how you feel like things like that really are not materialistic, really how you explain it. If I really only believe in terms of what I can see and touch, then how do you describe things like that?
It's not a matter of only believing in what you can see and touch. It's a matter of naturalistic explanations for phenomena that we witness. I have no problem at all believing in love and experiencing love and everything else. I happen to, when I am forced to analyze it down to what I think is most likely going on, it's chemicals in the brain. It's a reaction. It's something that's evolved as a particular response for a number of reasons. You're going to have a familial bond because your family is what protects you. You're going to have a bond with the person that is your significant other or whatever, because that type of bond benefits the individual and the species. I mean, free will could just be an illusion, and there are a lot of people who think it is. But the idea of love and these other intangible concepts of, happiness. I mean, you just know happiness and sadness. But to take the extra step and ascribe some kind of supernatural.
You might even be better off, not even thinking about this sort of reductionist view of things, and just enjoy the wonder of
so what about the concept like you listen to great music or see great art and are very moved by that?
Oh yeah.
And let's say I do want to analyze it. What would be the explanation for something like that?
If you are wanting to analyze it and kind of have a reductionist view, then from my point of view, it's a matter of looking into how the brain works and brain chemistry and other things like that, and that kind of takes some of the joy out of it, I would say. But it's funny that you bring that point up, because as somebody who was a fundamentalist Christian for 20 some odd years, one of the things that and I've mentioned this before, which was critical, was the Christians have this concept of being able to feel the presence of God and being touched by the Holy Ghost and moved when you pray, and we were singing in unison and the organ was playing and I could just feel it. It was chills and goosebumps, and you just know you're in the presence of God. And as soon as I built up enough life experience and a little bit of critical thinking skills and a way to analyze things rationally, and I discovered that, hey, you know what? When I listen to Phantom of the Opera, I get a similar experience, and you can have the same thing from any number of movies. I mean, oh my gosh, how many movies do people cry at or get scared because of, or get goosebumps and feel weird? Movies, music, all this stuff, and it seems reasonable to me that the best explanation is that it's prompting the exact, or that the church experiences are playing on the exact same types of natural chemical reactions and responses that the brain is trained to do.
So it's really just different labels that we apply to things that we experience.
I would think so. As Don pointed out, it's fine. It's one of the nice things is that it's okay to say we don't know. You know, we've got perhaps a Big Bang explanation for the origin of the cosmos, but we don't know for sure. We have some ideas about abiogenesis, about how life originated on Earth or some other place, whatever, but we don't know for sure, and it's okay to say we don't know. What's not okay is to say that you do know, is to say, okay, science hasn't come up with an explanation, so I'm going to stuff God into this gap, and now I know what the answer is, and the answer is God, when God is a non-answer. It's just an excuse, a way to claim that you know more than you do.
Instead of accepting that maybe we don't have all the answers and there's things that we continue to question.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh,
Okay,
thanks
thank
a lot.
you. Let me make one more little comment, and we'll go back to our other caller who has called back.
Yep. We're coming, Bill. Hang on.
There's we're coming. There's a frequently asked questions on our website that talks about the experience of being in a really nice garden, and whether you can enjoy that experience and just enjoy being out in nature and that sort of thing. And it sort of talks about how, well, if you say that the garden is magical and feels wonderful because there are fairies in the garden, that really sort of detracts from the beauty that's actually there.
Right.
And so some of these explanations I feel do detract and do kind of act as a means of maybe harnessing that sense of wonder and that sense of love and awe and our love for each other as humans for other ends. And my, in a sense, there's a hidden agenda there, and that I react negatively to that once I see it. And so I think that some of our religious interpretations are that they're a means of saying, well, there is no such thing as love without God, that sort of thing.
Well, that's something you can do. You could ask, if you're a believer and you believe in God and whatever, you have a limited understanding of God. You have whatever knowledge you claim to have has been revealed to you, or through your holy book, or through some direct, red phone hotline to God. But let's say that you're actually correct and there is a God and He created everything or whatever, and He comes up to you and tells you directly, yeah, this love thing, I didn't really create that. That's just a side effect of the brain chemistry that goes on in your brain that I needed in order to perform other things. Knowing that's true and getting it directly on authority from the God you believe in, does that diminish the experience of love at all? Does it change anything other than, hey, this is just how things work? So let's go on to Bill.
Yeah, let's do.
Hi, is this Bill?
Yeah, it is.
Well, we've never heard from you before. Who are you?
We're sorry about that.
My name is Bill. Interestingly, my last name is Fred Gill, and I was planning on seeing you guys.
Okay,
come on down.
We look forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
So maybe start at the beginning.
Pardon me?
Maybe start at the beginning.
Oh, only that since Mr. Ingersoll had felt all that freedom as a result of having come to his realization that the same thing that happened to me was equally, I think, profound, but in the opposite direction, and that is the fact that whereas all my life I felt like, okay, God's going to handle this, God will take care of us, God will make sure that we don't destroy the rainforest, the oceans don't die, and that global warming is,
The right thing will happen no matter...
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then suddenly it's like, wow, that's not going to happen. It's either us or it doesn't happen. In other words, we're going to do it or we're going to fail to do it.
Right, so there's a profound sense of responsibility too, right? That,
Exactly.
That the consequences matter.
It'll land on you like a ton of bricks.
But I got to go back to Spider-Man. With great freedom,
Great power.
I'm substituting. With great freedom comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
I know.
But when it hits you, and you can kind of get a sense of how much responsibility it is, it can be overwhelming.
I've often thought that the born again high that people feel when they sort of recommit themselves to God is due in part to a shrugging off of these responsibilities, or this awesome sense that hey, I'm out here alone and I need to make the right decisions or else, right? So that's my pet theory. Matt may disagree, having been on the inside, but I
It
think
makes a kind of sense, though.
I
don't
think
think
that there is a sense of security, though, from these beliefs, and I did mention that earlier. And I think that this is part of it. Is that if you've got God kind of looking out for you and helping the right thing happen.
I don't think
That's a
that most
comforting
Christians
feeling.
would actually acknowledge, and I don't think that there's anything that's part of a conscious recognition, but I would definitely agree that that's part of it.
Okay.
It's going back to, I'm reminded immediately of Bob Marley's Three Little Birds, where he's saying, don't worry about a thing, every little thing's going to be all right. That plays on a subconscious level, especially, when you're getting deeper into a religious belief. It's probably more about the layers beyond that, where you're that you're going to live forever. I would say is far more relevant to a person.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty powerful
than
thing.
shrugging off the responsibilities of the world. But anytime I've mentioned this concept, and you brought up concern about the rainforest, etc. Anytime I mention this idea that if you are a fundamentalist, Bible-believing, saved Christian waiting on the second coming, you have absolutely no reason to be concerned or give one damn about what happens to this planet, because you believe that it's going to be destroyed and recreated.
Yeah, the life here is a very temporary phase, and that we're all going to meet together at the great
this is all
high
just
in the sky, and so forth. I will say, though, on the other hand, though, that I have met Christians whom I respect, and that is because simply they put their faith to practice. I know one man in particular who runs a soup kitchen and feeds hungry people, and I've run into several people like that in my experience, and some folks that work for Habitat and believe that what they're doing is what their Christ would want them to do, and I have to respect that, because they do, in fact, put it into practice.
I think personally that their actions are more prompted by a subconscious humanism than by anything that religion. I mean, it's kind of a misplacement. I agree. There are plenty of Christians that do good things and religions that run charities and do benefit humanity. But it's and while some of those teachings are consistent with Christianity, it's not necessarily the crux of it.
Yeah.
And I think what we're like I mentioned earlier, the evolution of religion. Can apply to concepts like that. It's just like, the Bible's not anti-slavery. It's very much pro-slavery, even to the point of saying who you can enslave, how much to pay for them, and how you can mark them. And when slavery was on the cusp of being abolished in the United States, people would say, hey, no, it's in the Bible.
Yeah.
But now almost every Christian has moved on, and what they've done is their religion has been influenced by the rational thought of the society around them, and they've shrugged off those beliefs like that. And it's true of Leviticus, the order in Leviticus to kill homosexuals. You got Fred Phelps, who's probably the most vocal anti-homosexual in the country, but he's not actually following through with the order and killing, and because that would get his ass thrown in jail. So he shrugs it off as, well, God's going to do the killing, and he says God is the one who'll take care of that. I'm just saying that they deserve it, and that's it. Whereas most Christians, don't feel that death is deserved. They'll still talk about, how they're love the sinner, hate the sin type of thing. But yeah, it's all been affected by the world around them.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I look forward to kind of carrying this on a little bit further at Threadgill this evening. And,
Sure, we'll look for you.
We'll look forward to seeing you. And as a reminder for everybody else,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We're going to Threadgill's after the program down on Riverside. Show's off in 30 minutes, about 6 o'clock, and we'll be there somewhere between 6:30 and 6:45. Any atheist-friendly people are welcome to join us. You can come down and meet the cast crew, talk to us, tell me, whatever, tell us whatever.
Following a little tangent of your last discussion there.
Sorry, I'm the only one allowed to do tangents.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you talked about environmentalism, right? And, there is this notion in the Bible of being a steward of the environment, right? There's that. And then there's the whole, you shall have dominion over...
Subdue the earth is...
Right,
yeah.
subdue. Yeah, you will have dominion. These plants and animals are all yours to do away with as you please, or do with as you will. Anyway, I wanted to mention that there is now getting to be a little bit of an organized, more vocal organized movement within the evangelical community for environmentalism. And they've been hemming and hawing about whether to take a stance on this global warming issue, which is, it's been interesting to watch this because, from my perspective, if they have a direct line to God and God can just tell them what the right thing to do is, but in reality, what we're seeing is people debating this thing. They don't know, and they're trying to make a decision as to whether to take a side and what side to take. And this environmental issue is something that you could take either side, right? You could say, well, we're going to have children and we want to have a good place for them to live, right? You can take the kind of humanist approach of, the world better support us down the road, or you can take the approach that, well, we're just here to wipe our feet to go off to the next world,
right.
or worse, we're here to incite wars so that Jesus comes back quicker. Anyway, so I just find this interesting that this is playing out now, and you can actually see that. And finally, I think there's a group that's a fairly large, influential group that has taken a stance on global warming and has actually woken up the current administration a little bit on this issue, and because they've been taking on some very big denials about, or taking an attitude of denial about global warming because they are protecting corporate interests, which is the overriding thing these days. Anyway, this is all playing out, and this is just, I think, an example of how religions evolve over time, and we're seeing this. And so I wanted to go on that little tangent and mention that.
I'm glad you did.
Okay, let's take some more calls.
You got Daniel?
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, what's up? You're going to have to bear with me because I'm not, terribly articulate, but I'll try to get my point across. I don't particularly believe in any religions or anything. I don't think it's really necessary, except until recently I've been thinking there's so many people out there people are totally ignorant, I guess, and obedient, and
there's a lot of that out there, no doubt.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of laziness in thinking. It's go ahead and finish. I'll get to that later.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that without religion, it'd be a lot crazier. I guess despite all the murder and all that in the name of religion and all that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the absence of religion would necessarily make the world crazier. I realize there are people who probably do need religion. If you cannot create a workable philosophy for yourself that involves morals and ethics without the idea of somebody up in the sky saying you're going to do this or I'm going to burn you forever, keep your ass in church and you need it. But I don't think that the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket just because we get rid of religion. And I don't know that anybody's saying we should get rid of religion. I personally, I'd like to live in a world where religion is no longer a question. But I recognize that that's not a realistic solution right now. We're I think in a way kind of working through a possible second enlightenment or something where there are a bunch of people who are actively trying to say, there is good, sound, rational, a foundation available for which to build your life around without having to resort to an invisible friend in the sky or, the guy underneath the earth who's ready to stick you with a pitchfork. But, you've got religions, people killing in the name of it forever, and just about the time you think that this may be waning, now you've got more riots and more fights in the name of religion. Show me the atheist suicide bomber, and then I'll buy that,
Well, I can take a little bit different stance on that. I think that, and I think Dan Dennett has written about this, that religion has helped organize societies, and in that sense, it's helped shape who we are, evolutionary, in our evolutionary past. Now, whether or not you need it now is another question, and I think Matt addressed that pretty well. But I think that we can't ignore the fact that it has had a big impact on how we structure our societies and how we work together. It's become helpful in that respect. I think it wasn't necessarily required, right? I think that we could have organized societies without religion, but I think that it was.
I think it was the easiest solution.
It's the easiest solution.
When you're organizing society, the easiest thing you can possibly do is have one big authority controlling.
Right.
And then you can
the
build
whole
a
pecking
society
order
from there.
thing, right? You just put some magical thing at the top of the pecking order, and you get your. You don't have to be that magical thing. You just have to be the ambassador for that magical thing, and you effectively wield all that power. You let all that influence in the society, right?
Well, it's a way of avoiding questions. When somebody wants to stand up and say, "Well, why can't I do this?" And if the answer is because God has said you cannot do that,
Right.
Well, that ends any further discussion.
So the kings were all by divine authority, right?
Right. And I think we get to, we're moving towards, hopefully, a civilization where we begin to claim as our own those things which religion has glommed onto or developed even.
Well, that's kind of, I guess this kind of correlates to the humanistic, the humanism thing.
Mm-hmm.
And most humans, I don't believe that they have this, innate urge or necessity to help our fellow human, the majority, I guess. There's a lot of people that do, but I don't think we don't want to go out of our way to help another person.
Well, I think ultimately we're all kind of selfish, and even if you take a broad view of the notion selfish, it means sort of looking out for your long-term interests and such. I do this show because I enjoy it. Ultimately, and
you can come up with completely utilitarian reasons to help out your fellow man.
Right.
Things that help out your fellow man, even if you're completely selfish, I can help you out, for one, because I may be attempting to spread a meme that ensures that I'm helped out when I need to be helped out. You can look at it from that kind of selfish viewpoint if you want to.
So we kind of agree with you. Yeah.
Religion almost seems sometimes like some magnificent controlling device, but it doesn't. I mean, it just doesn't seem plausible that a group of geniuses got together. Hey, let's figure out a way to get everything in order. And
I don't have a view that religion was formed as a conspiracy. There are some people that say, well, when we're talking about, let's say, for example, who wrote the New Testament, there's evidence that there were interpolations and forgeries in the 4th century or so, maybe even as late as the 8th century, on behalf of the church, and that's a modification. And I think that's a good example of how I view organized religion. It's something which arose on its own out of people's ignorance and desire to answer questions.
It co-evolved with human nature, right?
Right.
If it didn't address human needs and such, it wouldn't carry on, right?
But the controlling aspect, the way of controlling people's lives, was something that it's been moved to or added in addition to what religion may have originally been.
Maybe.
In a sense that Christianity seems kind of ultimate there. They created almost like a perfect God, not a perfect God, but one that shows human qualities so you can relate to him, and then one who has ultimate authority, the wrath of God, God-fearing, so you will, listen and do what you're supposed to do, I guess, quote. And, the Roman gods, and, they were just too, that wouldn't, people wouldn't really, live their life right, I guess, with the Roman God, and then the whole.
There was a little. We talked about with the Greek gods, where there was an idea of defiance.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
So with the Roman gods, you have all these different sort of personalities and interests and such, and so the whole notion of control doesn't really come up so much, right? In the sense that who do you follow, right? Who do you appease as an individual worshiping those gods? But with a monotheism, that question's resolved. And then, as you said, the whole human side of things. Well, we have Jesus, right? That is sort of puts a human face on God, right? And you could think of it almost like a candy coating on this very almost sadistic, very mean, powerful, vindictive God of the Old Testament, with a candy coating that Jesus loves you. You get both benefits, right? You get the fear, the carrot and the stick at the same time. In one package.
Yeah.
And the Holy Ghost thing I haven't quite got figured out yet, but
Oh, who knows? Yeah.
Somebody can explain that to me at dinner.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for calling, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Gonna go on. Yeah. I don't know. On the one hand, I guess Jesus could be the candy coating around the evil, chocolatey Old Testament God, but the Old Testament God isn't the one who wants to burn me forever in hell.
Oh, he isn't?
No, that's a New Testament concept.
Oh.
In the Old Testament, which is why Jews don't have a unified position on the afterlife and what the afterlife is going to be. The Tanakh doesn't actually talk too much about it. It normally refers to sleeping with your father. When you die, you've gone to sleep with your fathers, which...
Join the ancestors.
You know,
that's a very common belief,
right.
Joining the ancestors. Right?
It's Christianity that begins this concept of eternal reward or eternal punishment. And, it's one of the reasons why I have a fundamental objection to the tenets of that religion. Plenty of other reasons as well, but I don't want to stay here all day talking about it.
Okay.
Let's go on to Judge.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Hi.
Good.
I'm a recovering Catholic and an avid atheist, and
Congratulations.
well, thank you so much. I just want to say one thing. I find ourselves, and you guys as well on the show, constantly defending your right as an atheist when we in no way want to disprove Christianity in any sense. If someone wants to be a Christian, they should be. But let's look at this point, that Christians are Methodist, they're Baptist, they're Catholics. Why, as Christianity, as one religion, so to speak, has different offshoots of different religions? God, there's so much I want to cover, and I can't. Religion is also needed because it's needed where government fails. That's why they have religion, because I don't see one atheist running for any kind of House of Congress or Senate or whatever. Obviously, Christianity does rule our lives.
Well, there are atheists who run for public office. There's one in the building right now, but the thing is not. I would be very reluctant about saying that atheists don't want to do that or don't try to do that. It's a matter of not being able. We live in a country that's 80% Christian, and the likelihood of an atheist president, no matter who runs, incredibly unlikely.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The separation of church and state, which you talked about earlier, does not exist. There is no way that it does. I am constantly under the thumb of Christianity, even though I'm not a Christian, and I want them to believe what they want to believe. I have no problem with that, even though one man's religion is another man's belly laugh.
Right.
But I just want to end it with this. If there was no God, man would have created one. Nietzsche said that a long time ago, and it's the truth. That's why we have a God. That's why people believe in religions, and religions have been perverted and used adversely throughout society, throughout time. And if you just look through history, and I'm not saying look through it as a Christian, look through it as an atheist, just look through history, how Christianity or religion has been perverted for people's own needs and wants. It's incredible. It's just...
Yep.
It's a damn shame.
There's a great quote. I forget.
Everyone wants to be a Christian, and they're all Christians of convenience. They don't go to church. They don't read the Bible. I thought the Christians, I couldn't name 3 books of the books of the Bible, although I can as an atheist. But they're all Christians of convenience. And please go ahead.
I was going to say there's a quote from like the 17th century. I forget who said it. That basically that man can't create a worm, but he creates gods by the dozens.
I might have been Voltaire.
That says a lot. That era. Yeah. There's another quote
I appreciate you being around. And once again, we are not out there to put Christians down, Buddhists down, any other religion whatsoever. Just let us believe what we want to believe. Stay away from my front door. Don't knock, and let me believe, because once again, we are not evil people. Talking about humanists, I was in Tucson for 23 years with the atheist organization there, and we did plenty of good things for the community, even though we are not Christians. And you can be humanitarianism, a humanist, and be an atheist. So keep it up, guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Judge. And as a reminder, you're also welcome to come down and join us at Thread Gills after the show. Somewhere between 6:30
I got 2 follow-ups on that.
And I have one, but you go.
Oh, well, maybe we can learn to leave them.
Maybe, that's why.
Okay. Well, the first thing is you're welcome to believe what you want as long as you take responsibility for the impact of those beliefs on others. Right. That's pretty simple, right? Want to go now?
I'm a little different. I mean, I understand what Judge was saying, and I would genuinely agree with it. I tend to take a slightly stronger position on some things than he probably would. For one thing, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you want to knock on my door, I'll give you my address. You're welcome to come over, knock on the door, sit down in the living room, and I will...
but you got to answer his question.
But I will be more than willing to have a discussion with you. You can't cop out with the non-answers that you've done every other time we've tried to do this. I agree that everybody has a right to believe what they want to believe. I would, and I was in the military for 8 years. I'm perfectly willing to fight and die for everybody's right to believe whatever stupid crap they want. On the other hand, I have no problem at all mocking the issues, and I have no problem at all being the rough equivalent of an evangelical atheist in trying to show people that there is a rational way to think. You can live your life without these superstitious, mythological nonsense notions, and be a perfectly reasonable member of society, and not be this monster that is often portrayed from the pulpit, the secular humanist, evil atheist, and we got to throw in the homosexual agenda and everything else that's trying to destroy liberals, America. No, actually, like Judge, in agreeing with his position, and like Colin McGinn has said, I would prefer to live in a world where these religion issues aren't even, hey, you remember back when we used to believe that stupid stuff? Or,
right.
Oh, that was so fun back then. I remember this one time at church camp.
Okay, let me do my last thing here.
You bet.
Getting back to this whole humanism talk, there was this book written by a guy named Tim LaHaye, who's kind of
he's one of the apocalyptic writers of the 20th century, 21st century now.
Of Left Behind fame.
Right.
He wrote those books. Anyway, he wrote a book called Mind Siege, which was basically casting aspersions on this whole humanism idea. And one of the things he does, he and Noble, who wrote the book Mind Siege, issued marching orders to the evangelical Christians, 80 million strong, urging them to gear up for an all-out battle to root out secular humanists out of public life. Their bottom line is that no humanist is fit to hold office.
Ta-da!
So there we have it. So we're all evil, I guess.
What's the evilest thing you've done today? Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I overslept. I mean, I think I couldn't come up with anything much worse this week. Oh, I think I flipped somebody off on the highway the other day. But, they had it coming. And I'm evil.
Yeah. We can't hold public office, right?
It's absolutely absurd.
Have no morals.
Let's go on to, is it Tamara or Tamara?
Tamara, that's close enough. I answered anything. I wanted to get back to Don's comment earlier about the evolution of religion. And I read last week, earlier part of this week, maybe, about a number of religious groups who are getting behind the evolution debate on the side of religion or on the side of science.
Well, that's another interesting thing going on too.
Okay,
the Clergy Letter Project.
That's a major step in hopefully the right direction.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering if the moderate, and maybe you guys, if you've heard more, I haven't heard anything more on it. If the moderate religious organizations and groups are actually starting to try and get their influence together to try and overtake the neoconservatives who have for a long time sort of taken over the stage of debate on religion and science and pretty much everything else.
I definitely hope that's what's going on. If there was a God, that's what I would be praying for every night.
Right.
But take yes.
Yeah.
Please take back your party and your group from these nuts.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done, I think, maybe perhaps a little bit unfairly, is I've come on and I've said that Christians are doing this, Christians are doing that, and in reality, it's different subgroups of Christianity doing this and that. But
True.
My goal here is to try to shame, I think, all the Christians into sort of taking responsibility for what people are doing in the name of Christianity. And I see that finally this sort of, not just from me, but from a lot of folks, they're getting sort of tired of these very conservative, the Pat Robertsons, the James Dobsons, the Kennedys, all these guys that are kind of so conservative, they're creepy. They're also very good at being very vocal. And a lot of folks, I think, from the outside of Christianity have the idea that that's what the Christianity is about. And so I'm glad to see that the more moderates are finding their voice finally and maybe countering that. And we see that, as you mentioned, in this evolution debate. This whole intelligent design movement went quite a long way, I think, before moderate Christians even took a real strong stance on it. There's a lot of groups that have been pushing this intelligent design in classrooms and such, and I think that the tide is turning on that, and we're starting to see people speak out and say, hey, yes, you can believe in God and also accept that evolution is the best explanation for the diversity and complexity of life. And I'm really thrilled to see that, because I think those folks ought to stand up and speak. If Christianity has anything to say about morality, these folks should be just as vocal.
Right. I not only agree with everything Don just said, but sometimes I go to great lengths to say, fundamentalist or extremist or Christian, this particular type or whatever. There's a lot of times where I don't, and out of those times, many of them are on purpose, not only just, as Don said, to kind of shame them into action, but number one, I shouldn't have to go around putting qualifiers on everything I say. If there's something which applies generally, if I make a comment about, for example, the Islam, the claim that Islam is a religion of peace, and if I point out that no, there are verses which you can use to claim that, there are also verses you can use to claim that it's time to kill your neighbor because he doesn't believe in the same God, I'm speaking and painting with a broad brush, and it's the responsibility of the Muslims to say, no, I'm not that kind of Muslim, and it's the responsibility of Christians, liberal, moderate, whatever particular denomination you are, to say, I'm not that kind of Christian. I actually believe in evolution, and I'm not for polluting our school systems with religious beliefs, and prompting them to kind of identify themselves and clean their own house. It shouldn't be my job to clean their house.
Right. They should be doing that.
I don't mean to purposely offend any individual, but I am going to speak out against ideas and ideals in general. And if you think that what I'm saying, and I'm not speaking to you, everybody.
Right.
If somebody thinks that I'm not properly framing what their beliefs are, then guess what? I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the idiots whose position I'm actually framing. Yeah. If you're a young Earth creationist, and if I'm in here talking about how there's no way that the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old, especially since we just found a new mammal that's 165 million years old, which completely changes the dating scale for when mammals arose by 100 million years. If I'm talking about that and how some Christian fundamentalists date it to 10,000, if you're not a young Earth creationist, I'm not talking about you.
Yeah.
It's kind of that simple.
So let's let Tamara respond
to
what
we said.
No, that's what I totally agree 100%. I mean, I'm an atheist, and these issues have been, I've been steaming for quite some time now.
Oh, yes.
So all the things have been going on. So it's really nice to know that the moderates are gaining ground and finding their voice, because as a general rule, I try not to lump all Christians together, because they're not. I mean, granted, when you say Christian, it's a very broad term, but a lot of people I know who are Christian throughout my years and that are out there don't all believe in, a lot of these Bible-thumping, let's kill everybody who disagrees with us. So it's nice to know that they're finding, finally, and hopefully for a lot of other issues, finding their voice and coming together and making a change and getting these other people off the podium So hopefully we can resolve some issues.
So I'm still annoyed that they didn't do it earlier because,
Yes, this
you know.
is true.
I also have objections, and we talked about this briefly on the radio show yesterday. I also have objections in that they're still maintaining the same label and still advocating the same book, which is promoting the bad elements of religion. I mean, there's just no escaping the bad things in the Old Testament. And if you're a Christian, no matter how liberal and reasonable you may be as a Christian, if you're still promoting the Bible as the Word of God, even semi-literally, you've got to come up with explanations for that. And you have to realize that you're also promoting, like it or not, fundamentalists and extremists. So it's not all bred, you know. I'm lucky because within my own family, I have a good mix. My brother is a rather liberal, reasonable Christian who, you know, we have conversations all the time, whereas my parents are fundamentalist Christians. But so you're coming to dinner, right?
Probably not tonight. I'm sorry.
Well, join us at
but
some point.
Sometime soon, perhaps.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. You guys are doing a great job.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. And as a reminder for everybody else, any atheist-friendly people, welcome to join us at Threadgills. We'll be there around 6:45.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Let's go on to Cody.
Hello?
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, I was calling to ask you about something called either irreversibly complex or...
Irreducibly complex?
Yeah, or have you heard of it?
Yes.
What do you think about it?
Go for it.
It is a term that irreducible complexity is a term that is being used, or a concept promoted by the intelligent design movement, to say that, oh, we have these biological things, these animals, these subsystems in biology, organs and such that if you took one part away of this complex system, it would break. It would no longer function. And this is what they mean by irreducible complexity. So it's a way of measuring what they feel is design, in the sense that if something is irreducibly complex, then you can't assemble it piece by piece from a previously working thing into more. And so I personally think that this is a kind of a bogus concept that kind of hides what the real issues are. I see it as a distraction, a red herring, more than a something that sheds light on design and complexity.
It seems like something that would be, well, it obviously hasn't been demonstrated, but it seems like something that would be difficult or impossible to prove, to claim that this particular organism or structure is so complex that natural selection is not a good enough explanation to arrive at that. But yeah, as it shows on the screen, you can go to talkorigins.org for more information on evolution issues and more counter-intelligent design issues as well. Okay. Irreducible complexity, that's Behe's baby.
Yeah. And in reality, what happens in these systems that do have this capability is that very often there are pieces that have been used in other means, and so there's like this sort of response to that of the mousetrap, right? Or he said the mousetrap is irreducibly complex because the hinge and the platform and the hook and such all have to be there for the mousetrap to work. But in reality, the mousetrap can have other functions without the hook, for example, right? And so you actually saw people, scientists and such, mocking Behe at conferences wearing a mousetrap as a tie clip.
Yeah.
Without the hinge, without the hook, right? So that's a demonstration, and that happens in biological systems where there'll be components or subsystems that are used for other things that get adopted for use in other areas, and so that's how these things build up over time, and that's the answer to the irreducible complexity.
There's a quote by Dawkins, and I won't get it right off the top of my head, but where he's addressing irreducible complexity, and he's basically saying that it's a claim about the limits of our own imagination. Just because you can't imagine a use or a way that it got there doesn't mean that it didn't.
Right.
Still evolve to it. We're almost out of time. Let's go quickly on to Chuck.
Hey, how's it going today, guys?
Good. You got like 20 seconds.
Yeah, I got, let me give you a couple of things there. I don't think overall people are ready for religion to go away, because I don't think that they can mentally handle the thought that there's nothing afterwards. That really does mess these religious people up. They just can't handle it.
Yep.
And then the second thing, as far as like when Matt was saying how he likes to talk about religion, I do the same thing at work. I won't seek out arguments, but if someone wants to talk to me about it, I would definitely like to go back and forth religiously. But when I get tired of it, when they won't give or take, then I just always like to end the argument with, well, look, we'll just continue the discussion when you bring me hard, tangible evidence of a God. And I don't mean your Bible or your faith. Bring me something else, anything.
We got to go. I'm sorry to cut you off. We only got a couple seconds left. Call in earlier next week. We'll get back to our callers. Thanks to everybody for watching.
Thanks to our crew.
Thanks, Don.
Okay.
We'll see you next week. Come on out to dinner.